Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Angela Gill Nelms with us today. She's a startup executive, a founder, and a leadership strategist host. So she also has a podcast called the Badass Leaders Podcast. I've watched a couple of episodes and she does a fine job. She's a board member, mental health advocate. So we're going to speak about that today. Culture driven growth advisor, team builder, and a speaker on leadership, conflict, and scaling, which is super fascinating to me. So, Angela, welcome to the podcast. Tell us a bit more about yourself and what you're up to.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. Well, this is great. And so a little bit about myself. I guess now I would say I had the blessing of being raised in a very abusive childhood. And with that, I learned a lot of leadership skills. I learned how to think strategically before I did actions. I learned how to read body language, how to get to know humans as humans. And throughout my journey at the age of 29, I decided to go back to school as a single mom with a special needs 2-year-old to get my degree in biomedical engineering, and have spent the majority of my career in the healthcare space, initially working in hospitals, running clinical trials, and then helping to build a few companies. And now I'm the managing director of an organization that builds companies through Georgia Tech and Emory. And then I also, as you mentioned, I do a lot of leadership consulting and culture building and personal branding, really with the goal that I believe every individual, team, organization has their own badass, which is the best they can do at that stage. And many of us aren't brave enough to do it. So I'm here to try and encourage people to be brave enough to step outside their comfort zone and be their own badass.
So, how did you survive that abusive childhood? Tell us a bit more about that. That's a rough start.
Yeah, it was a rough start. And, I think they say this phrase, you never know how strong you are until that's the only choice that you have. And so I will say I do feel strongly that I was blessed with some inherent just idea that I was a good human being. And I really learned there were many things. So, for example, growing up, I was the only one abused. My 3 brothers were not abused. And so everything, especially my older brother, everything he said was right. And everything I said was absolutely immediately wrong. So the thing that really helped me later in my career, being a female executive, being a female engineer, a female in the C-suite, was that I learned how to not take that personally when other people didn't listen to me initially. I learned these strategies about how to think very strategically about what my decision or what my comment was instead of just blurting something out. And those skills and being that person on the team. I also learned a lot of conflict resolution skills, which you mentioned, Charles. I love working with teams on conflict resolution. Many people are afraid of it, but I learned how to overcome that fear and really find my voice during that period of time. And it really has helped in leadership and helping teams be their best selves.
It's kind of interesting, right? Because that happened to you at such a young age, and most people go PTSD instead of developing like a shield. So you sort of developed an emotional shield. You're sort of separated from the situation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think I often say that when you look at individuals who go through extremely challenging periods of their time, you have those individuals who end up and also I've struggled with PTSD multiple times in my life, and so I have so much appreciation for it. At the same point, you have individuals who they almost thrive off of sitting in the victim role, or maybe that they don't necessarily thrive off of it, but they think that's their only option, and that's not. And there's exactly. And there's a difference between surviving and thriving. And I think a lot of individuals who go through really difficult times, they really focus on just surviving. But if you take a step back and you say, okay, what are the things that are core to me that I can do well, that I can harness to be successful? And you really pour into those things, and you surround yourself. I had a couple of people who believed in me, not very many, but a couple. And when you do that, then you can thrive. And I think that was the piece. And now, early in my career, when I was the only female in a room in a board meeting and people would talk over me and they would dismiss me, this was not new to me. I had already learned how to navigate it in a way that brought everyone together. So we saw the vision together.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's also really fucked up because when you start in life, you're very vulnerable, right? It's the only thing you know.
Yes.
It's like it, yeah, that person's supposed to teach you stuff, but they teach you like the totally wrong thing. So yeah, it must be quite hard to sort of separate yourself from that experience, right? And because your brain, it will default to this, right? It will constantly remind you of that shit, and you sort of need to separate yourself from that and create another reality, and also realize that your brain is not you, right? It's just a voice
Yes.
up there, and that you need to create your best self type of voice, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also this idea of your mindset. I'm a big believer in being very thoughtful and strategic about what your mindset is and what you say to yourselves. And so I even remember when I was younger, when I was a young kid and I had this horrific abuse, and my aunts would call child protective services. They would come, they would say, "Nothing's wrong. She's fine." Until an event happened, then, all hell broke loose. But the voice in my head was this voice. It wasn't, I wouldn't accept all the things that were said about me from the abusers, right? The voice in my head was like, no, I can do this. I am good enough to do this. And when I talk to others who challenge at different stages of their life, I say, look, that voice that you tell yourself in your head, that is what is going to make the night and day difference. Like no one else can have an impact on you more than what your voice in your head says. And one of the phrases I hate, Charles, is that when people say, "Oh, children are resilient," I hate that mentality because I strongly believe you only build true resilience as you learn how to overcome challenges and you learn
Yeah.
how to create a mindset that's healthy.
Right. And when you're being abused, you're left powerless. It's just like one person trying to overpower you the whole time, and you don't have like any saying. So yeah, the solid base is really important. And the thing also with abusers is that most of the time they've been abused, right? So it's a cycle that keeps
Yes.
uh reproducing itself. It's quite pervasive, and they need help, the abusers as well. They need sanity, they need to be taught the right way. And yeah, like in what ways are we fixing this as a society, in your opinion, nowadays?
Oh my gosh, this is such a great question. Well, one thing I want to say is tying to what you just commented on is that I had a lot of anger growing up about this, right? It was just not fair. I saw others, and also I saw my three brothers being like a great childhood. And so I had that dichotomy that existed at an early age. However, when I became a mother and I experienced this innate love for my daughter so much, then that was so healthy for me because I also realized exactly what you said is that those individuals who were so abusive to me had so many mental health challenges because innately we really want to love and care for our offspring. And so that understanding really helped me because it started me pushing myself to get to know humans as humans and understand that. So going back to your question about the mental health and the mental wellness, I love the transparency and the openness that you hear now when individuals talk about in my podcast. I've had a couple of amazing leaders that have talked about challenges they have based on their family of origin and just opening up, like reducing the stigma, educating the world on the impact and how it actually shows up later in life. For example, I also had a dinner last night with a friend. He's struggling through a marriage instance, and talking to him, he was talking about, okay, well, I'll just say his name is John. Little John reacts this way, right? And Big John, the adult self, reacts this way. But when something really challenging hits, our natural instinct is to fall back to that little John. And so he's working to heal that. And I think so much of research and family systems and ego states, and if you Google a lot of that, really helps individuals understand that the way we learn to react to individuals, to conflict, to hardship, to challenges is really at a core as a child. And if we don't, as a society, focus on understanding those and then also rewriting the script, then we just get stuck in that cycle.
Yeah, so I guess therapy is where I think I would start regarding this. I use ChatGPT also as a therapist, which oddly enough is very
Really
effective, right? A
helpful.
lot of
Yeah.
people hate on that, but like, why not? You know, it's in your pocket 24/7. Um, but I think, yeah, society nowadays, like your friend John, or call him John, I think we're just like overwhelmed, right? Like with the job, the bills to pay, this capitalistic system sort of reaching its limits, in my opinion. And there's a lot of noise as well. There's like a lot of pieces of data. We're not sure which one to follow, which one is truthful, which one is not. We compare ourselves in social media age a lot. So it's kind of hard, and it's good that you found a friend like you, right? Like a human contact to actually talk to humanly, which is hard nowadays, believe it or not, especially for kid like me that grew up behind a screen, right? To talk physically and to do physical activity with people, not stand behind a screen. So yeah, there's all of that noise nowadays, and it's really hard to get good advice. And I just finished a podcast 15 minutes ago with a divorce lawyer, and I think the divorce rate is like 60%. So, and yeah, just the basic of a marriage is really rocket science, right? It's like trying to merge two beings that are most of the time so different together.
Yes.
And it's just hard to find answers and find a way. I think, in my opinion, is like shutting down the noise, finding focus, and being patient, right? Like people are just not patient. Me, been in a marriage for last decade almost, and it's only been like slightly improving every year. But if I would have dumped the project on year one, I could have even congratulated myself. Oh, good decision, Charles. You did the right decision. No, probably did not, right? Like the goal is to build something solid and have a foundation. And yes, that starts with conflict, right? And listening to the other person while keeping some hints of your ego in the equation, because you ultimately you serve yourself first and then you serve others. So yeah, I know I blurted a bunch of information your way, but
I love it.
does any of that made sense to you?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, it was amazing. And congratulations on close to a decade. That is a great accomplishment. And I wish you many more decades to come. One of the things that when you were talking about that I was thinking about is w- I it- I strongly believe, and this is going to sound strange coming from someone who's gone through as many challenges as I have, because I was also the victim of a kidnapping in August of 2020. And so
Whoa.
I talk a lot about overcoming that. I have my 5-year escape anniversary, August 20th. It's also my 50th birthday. And so I'm once again celebrating accomplishing that. But one of the things in that is I I really believe that most humans are good at their core. They want to be good at their core, okay? And I know that sounds strange coming from someone in my background, but I strongly believe that. And so because I believe that, I really desire to get to know humans as humans and try and dig a little deeper. You know how we in science, like, okay, being in the C suite, we do the 5 whys. Like we're building a product. Why should we do it? What are the problems? And then dig down the 5 whys. I believe the same thing in humans. And it's one of the things I love about conflict is that really conflict is a team or an organization or individuals who they're really not digging down to the core of what it is and giving the other people who are participating in this experiment of conflict, giving them first off the benefit of the doubt. Like I think they really are passionate about something, and I really want to understand why they're so passionate about that. And I think that I can probably be more patient than others because I spent a whole childhood having to be patient. And so I am more than willing to be the first one to sit and listen and dig down to the core of what that is. And Charles, when we do that as humans, the other person says, "Oh, wait, she actually does care. She actually does want to know." And then they become willing to hear the same thing from you. And that's when the real beauty happens. I think a lot of people think that if they're the patient one, the one asking all the questions in the beginning with an intent to understand, that they're somehow not as amazing as the other person. They're somehow deferring to the other person. They're somehow putting themselves down or below the other person. And I don't think that at all. I think all you're doing is giving a gift to yourself by spending the time to get to know this person, because in the end, some of my closest friendships are people who I initially had conflict with or we didn't understand each other. And by going through this, yeah, right? We see that, oh, wait, they're also a human being. Like they actually also make the same silly mistakes that I do.
Yeah, well, it's ego, right? Like, especially, well, me, I'm quite alpha and testosterone, so it's like, oh, my ego naturally reacts to criticizing that person, so it thinks it's higher than them. But that's just, and then you let that simmer down. It's like, oh, I actually respect that guy and what they're doing, and some part of my ego wants what they want. So let me just let's default to curiousness, right? And for other alphas out there that think that asking question is not alpha, think of jujitsu, right? Like you start at the
Yes.
bottom, you can very much triangle choke someone easily, armbar them. So it's just like it's not a trap, right? But like it's a way to think and to obtain information. The CIA does it amazingly. FBI, I'm not using it that way. Me, I'm just naturally curious, just like you, and I love humans, right? Like just understanding their reality. We all live like crazy lives, right? So, and talking about that, let's double click on the kidnapping stuff. Like, what the fuck happened there?
Okay, yeah. So before we double click on that, I do want to comment on a word that you said that I really want listeners to pick up on: curiosity. If you live in a spirit of curiosity, true curiosity, that's where magic is. So then it's no longer a game. It's that you really, really want to understand that. Okay, kidnapping. Yes, I'd been single for a period of time. I had a CFO at my previous company who said, "Oh, you should try this dating app. You'll love it. The engineer in you will love it because it asks questions and you can answer questions and it matches you with this individual based on your responses." And so I did. Unfortunately, it matched me with an individual who I later found out had been dishonorably discharged from the Coast Guard in cybersecurity. He was targeting me. Many of the things on his profile were fake. We went out several times during 1 week and I decided something felt weird. Unfortunately, he had figured out my schedule. And so I went out to walk my dog and he held me hostage. And I know this is live stream. I'll just go ahead and say this. One of the challenges too was that he'd hacked into my email and my calendar, and we had been intimate in that period of time. And he had done a video of it that I didn't know about. And he was like, "Look, you're an executive, you're bored. I was on all these boards at Georgia Tech. I'll share this with them if you don't come with me." And it also ties to me in that moment when it was happening. I was horrified. I thought, I've worked so hard. Yeah, I was 40. I was about to turn 45 at the time. I've worked so hard. He's going to destroy everything that I've worked for, right? And so I appeared to go with him. He held me hostage for 5 days. Over those 5 days, once again, going back to mindset and resiliency, over those 5 days, I had moments where I was just like, you know what? I give up whatever he wants, right? And then the next moment, oh, fuck that. Like, I'm not, I'm going to fight. So it was this constant battle. And then finally, happened to be on my 45th birthday, I just decided, you know what? I don't care. I'm 45-year-old woman. So what? I dated someone and I was intimate with them. If that is like the worst thing that happens to me in life, fine. If all of these people can't stand by me, if they see this video of this, fine. My life and my daughter's life is worth it. And I had the opportunity to run and I did. And I don't regret it at all.
Yeah, faith in humanity is tough to regain after you hear things like that. So is he in fucking jail? This is the first question I have.
I know.
Is he still alive? Is the second one, because
he's still alive. He's not in jail. And if you Google different interviews I did at different stages of how healthy I was in life, early on, I would just tell people, "Oh yeah, he's in jail," because that was the easy answer to give to people. Okay. The reality is I spent about a week working with special victims units, and the criminal system is not a fan or in favor of women who have situations like this. And in working with both my doctors and the special victims unit, they said, here's the challenge. This is multiple felonies. And there's very little actual proof, documented proof. Like the videos you could see from the police cameras, you could tell a tussle was happening. But they said it could just be that you dated and you just had a bad breakup and you're just using this against them. And so they said, you can go to court. It'll be a jury trial, and you have a 50-50 shot of him being found guilty. If he's found guilty, then he'll be in prison many years. Every time he comes up for parole, then you'll have to come and give your statement. And at that point, I thought talking about the incident repeated times, my doctors were like, that's going to be so bad for your mental health. All that said, I've done a lot of talking about it over the years, and I could have survived that, but I didn't know that then. And then the other thing they said was the real struggle will be is that the other 50% is he'll get found not guilty, and then nothing can ever be held against him. So they sealed the file. It's listed as sexual other with the promise that if anything comes up again, they'll pull up the file and I can testify. But Charles, I will tell you, that has been the one decision in life that I've second guessed a million times. And despite how many movies I see about women who've been same thing and then went to court and then they were just drawn through the news and it just ruined so much, I still struggle with, did I do the right thing or did I not? But that's the reality.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's quite hard, right? And to decide what's right and what's wrong to do as a human being. Like, obviously, the right thing for the justice system, I think, for society is to keep that individual locked, at least till we can figure out a better way to do so. It's clearly someone that abuses of their power, right? And it's terrible to do that to a human being. It's very much a male thing to do, right? Like trying to have power over someone else and use like sexual intercourses against them. It's very evil, right? And that
Yes.
should not be tolerated. But yet, like, how do you deal with that? Like, how could you put that behind you, especially that it's recent, right? It's like 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Yeah. So what I did was I left the state. So this was August of 2020, the middle of COVID. I was COO of my first startup company. And so I left the state. I went and stayed with a friend in North Carolina for 4 months with my daughter. And when I came back, I never went back to that area I sold my condo. I had my real estate agent stage it, sold it. I sold my vehicle, bought a new vehicle. I moved to the other side of town. I continued running the company until we closed our Series C and in March of 21. And when that happened, then I took basically a long sabbatical, which, I ultimately left the company to do this and did 6 months worth of residential treatment. And that 6 months worth of residential treatment was the things that I learned in that period of time and the people that I met from all walks of life, Charles, really turned me, it amped up my leadership game so much because I suddenly saw people from so many different challenges and I had an opportunity to have conversations with them and I cared. So I learned from them. So then afterwards, now 5 years later, when I see someone that's struggling with something, I don't come in as a condescending path at all. I come in with that curiosity we talked about earlier and really trying to say, hey, how can I see this person as a human being? And so first off, I want to be clear. I don't want anyone to go through childhood. I'm very proud of the fact that I believe I've been a great mother to my daughter. I love her so much and she knows that. So I don't want that, although it helped me in my career because I learned how to overcome it. I don't want that at all. I think parents, you need to protect your children and give them a solid foundation. I also don't say that while I have learned so much and I'm so much of a better leader now than I was before that, I also am not advocating for that at all. But what I am advocating is this going through not becoming the victim or just becoming a survivor, but really trying to work with people who can help you thrive.
Right. And jail keeps people away from society the time that it takes them to quote unquote rehabilitate. But I don't think we have a good system when it comes to that. Like, what's a good way to reboot someone mindset wise and teach them the tools to be one, good to themselves, but also their community and society?
Oh, I love this comment because yes, our system in the US, I mean, if you look at the stats versus some other countries who've really focused on rehabilitation and been successful at it, we really focus on keeping the individual ostracized, going through these things, but we don't set them up for any vocational help to be able to then transition into the success of the world outside. So I strongly believe we need more programs in the penitentiary system that deal with legit therapy, rewards along those lines, more programs about helping them figure out what those pieces of them that turn them into focusing on these areas. Like my individual, for example, already had some claims and some charges against him for stalking and things like that. So people like this, like they get into this habit, and really focusing on the mental wellness of individuals who are incarcerated and try with a goal to help them deal with all of the challenges they've had in a life in a healthy way, and then help them transition back into society in a meaningful way.
Right. They're giving out to their demons, most of them, and they don't have guides, like most of them, they spend a lot of times with themselves, and they don't
Yes.
surround themselves with good people. And I think that's a gigantic challenge. Last but not least, because I know you're on time, what are your thoughts on what happened with the T app? I think like a bunch of, I'm not sure if you knew about that one, but it was like a bunch of women congregating around red flags and green flags in dating apps like yours. They would like actually put like bad daters there. So your guy would be definitely on there, but it was also like bad gossiping and sometimes like throwing guys under the bus that didn't deserve to be thrown under the bus. And the app got hacked. And all the information that was supposed to be private about these women's got revealed to the world. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, well, first off, I didn't know anything about it until just now, so you're getting my genuine thoughts about it. Uh, you know, I think that the challenge with apps and some of these things is that people truly don't spend the time to be curious and get to know humans as humans. And they're really, it's like your Facebook thing. You scroll through and you see people commenting on things just to start drama and that not. And so I will say, obviously, I'm not a fan of dating apps. And so I wouldn't be the person that any dating app would say, hey, advertise for us, because I'm not for that instance. And I also think that the other tie is to the privacy. And I would say to individuals, when you read something about someone, understand that there was an individual that you don't know their motives, you don't know their history, you don't know their background, that wrote that. And you have no idea whether or not that's an accurate statement about that individual or not. The only way you know is if you spend the time and the curiosity and the patience to get to know that person as an individual. And if you feel like that person should be a part of your life, then spend that time to do that. If not, then I would take everything that somebody else says about it with a grain of salt.
Thanks for your time, Angela. We should do a round two sometime. Where can people find out more about you?
Absolutely. We absolutely should. So if you Google Be Brave, Be Badass, you will find all my social media handles. I also have a website, angelagillnelms.com. You can find me on LinkedIn and all social media channels. And then, of course, I have the Badass Leaders podcast. If you just type in those 3 words, then you can hear some amazing episodes with some amazing leaders.
So that was Angela and Charles.